Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining with us today. This is Ask SAC, brought to you by Project Encephalon. Project Encephalon, which is a community of neuro enthusiasts, where we try so much to bring all our neuro enthusiasts and people who are interested in neuroscience and allied fields to join together, discuss about their ideas, and find paths that help them to grow. And this is one such initiative. I am Yamini, your host for today's session, and currently I am Human Resource Development Officer. For this session, our mentor of the month is Ritwika Roy. Let me introduce her. After completing her MSc in Neuroscience from the University of Manchester, UK, and her Bachelors in Microbiology and Biochemistry from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, She's a professional stint at she was a professional stint at Pfizer, and Ritwika joined Reservoir to make a difference in the field of neurology. She's an active mental health advocate and addresses the stigma around mental health. And she's an active content creator, writes articles, and and has a lot of discussion just like this one. So let's welcome Ritvika. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Yamini, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. So can we start?
Sure, definitely.
All right. So, Ritvika, I mean, the journey to the path and the goal and the destination is never easy, and it is never always a straight path. However, we see it is always meandering. We would love to know where did your passion for neuroscience started, and when was that point where you felt that you should be doing something in industry instead of academia?
So I think after my master's from UK is like I realized like I want to explore the field of corporates, like how the big pharmaceutical companies they work, what really goes on in their industrial exposure, what really happens, with the medical side of pharma. And that's why I applied to Pfizer because I wanted to understand what is the translational side of academia, what is actually going on, bench work, then how do we get that out across to people, um, translate our findings. So that's why I joined Pfizer, where I was working as a medical officer, and I was solving medical queries and cases for patients, doctors, HCPs, the various stakeholders, different healthcare professionals, and I was also doing a literature review analysis over there. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting role, and it was an interdisciplinary role of sorts. So it wasn't only focused on neurology.
All right. So I would like to continue on the same lines. So there were people who wanted to know what are your thoughts about entrepreneurship in neuroscience? Did you ever think about beginning a startup? If not, why? And if yes, what hurdles did you face?
So I never thought really on these lines like becoming an entrepreneur. I'm always like I was more interested in the research aspect of neuro, but of late I have been giving it a thought. Yes, I have been giving it a thought because like you need to look at the different challenges that come with it. For example, the financial aspects, the running a whole company, a whole startup. You have to look at the fundraising campaigns. You have to look at a variety of resources, HR management, and that can be bootstrapped for a while, but you also need to constantly be ideating. And since neuroscience is a niche topic, like it's not really available especially in India as much as it is out there. We need to find one idea which really clicks with the people. But right now I was actually thinking of maybe building something new or starting something new. So if any of y'all want to contribute or y'all would like to collaborate, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a discussion, we can have a chat on it.
Great. So my first question is, why did you not choose PhD as your career?
So the reason I did not choose PhD immediately after master's, so like you can go two ways. You can either do like your bachelor's, master's, and then go into PhD, like that is a proper academic route, or you can go like bachelor's then work, master's then work, and then if you want, you can do a PhD. What I did was I did bachelor's, master's, then work for a few years, which I'm doing now. The reason I did not go for a PhD is because I wanted to understand the industrial side of it, and I was honestly a little like I was a little saturated with the amount of academic research and the lab work, and it does take a lot of toll on your mental health as well, because like in scientific experiments in science, that like even no result is a result. So that was hard hitting for me, especially there in the UK. So I wanted to take a break of sorts, and then I thought that, okay, well, like if I want to go back to research, I can always do a PhD, but for now I want to see how the industrial exposure is, which is why I went into industry.
All right. So there is this question how you just mentioned, but we would like to get your answer or your opinion bit more elaborate. The question is, how is being in academia different from industrial research in fields of neuroscience? If you can elaborate bit more, and how does one know which of these we should be pursuing in long term? What are the advantages or disadvantages?
So see, it all depends on your interests, really. Like, before you jump into an academic route, you really need to understand why you're doing this and what you're going to get at the end of it. Like, it can't just be like, oh, I love research, and like I love being in the lab and I love doing experiments. You actually need to have a focus. Like, you actually need to solve a problem statement, or you need to come up with a problem statement and say that, okay, XYZ is the problem statement that I feel needs a solution, and I think what I can propose can help solve this problem, and then you can approach professors with that. Because one thing we need to understand, especially in biomedical sciences, is that being in academia and being in research does not give you remuneration as good as what you get in the industry. Like, that is that is the sad truth, but that is the truth. So you can, like, of course it can be very fulfilling while you're out there doing research, something that no one has really done before. But I think on some lines, if you want to get a more translational business development side of it, if you want to be on the fringes of science, but you also don't want to be completely into hardcore research lab work, then you should go into industrial exposure. And one more thing is that research, especially PhDs and even masters, of course, like masters, there is more like a mini PhD of sorts. It was for me. It can get really lonesome and hectic. So you need to be okay with the fact that you're going to be handling a project alone. Your supervisors are just going to ask you, like, they're just going to tell you, like, this is the problem. You have to solve it in your own way. There are no textbooks or anything. You just need to come up with solutions. And like that, you can be all alone in research. So you need to be absolutely like headstrong with the fact that, okay, no, I really want to do this, and you need to know why you're doing it at the end of the day. So yeah.
You just mentioned the fact that you should be knowing how to frame a question, or rather how to frame a problem, and also think about the solutions. As an undergrad myself, I think we are not exposed to this kind of working in our college system. And a lot of people think that what we should be doing, what skills should we have so that we are good at having a career in neuroscience. What do you think that, what is the advice you think that we should be doing to become really good at something like that?
So honestly, like for me also, like like I did not have neuroscience in my undergrad. Like I went directly, like I jumped from microbiology biochemistry to neuro. And so you don't need to have any specific, it's okay if you don't have any exposure in any neurological techniques or any neuroscientific approaches or methodologies, because at the end of the day, neuroscience is a interdisciplinary, it's an interdisciplinary field. So if you know the basics of bio, if you know the basics of medical sciences, you know your lab work, your wet lab procedures properly, like Western blotting, immunohistochemistry, RT-PCR, you can like solve. So if I give you a problem right now, you can solve it like this, you know what method to use. Then that is what actually holds value as a scientist. Because when you go for your PhD, when you go for your masters, no one really cares, or no one really sees the marks. And this was also, I think, one of the questions, like how important are marks and grades. So I'll tell you, like, marks and grades are really not that important. Like, I was like, when I was in university, like in UK as well as in Xavier's, I was a university topper, and I was the microbiology topper as well. And I thought that, oh, wow, this is amazing, like I know everything. But then when I went to Manchester, I saw like people from all across the world who knew so much more than me. Like, they have they have like field exposure, they have hospital exposure, they have worked in labs, they actually have like 7 8 publications, some of them have patents. And you don't even need to have a neuro background for that. You can just like grow as a researcher by networking, collaborating with others, hosting like sessions like this. And yeah, that should be enough. You do not need to actually have like textbook knowledge per se, rather like focus on growing your translational skills to get into research.
Beautiful. So there was this question that someone from outside the realms of biology interested in neuroscience, how should they present their ideas to different scientists who are working in the labs, and how should they choose the programs? So, like, suppose if there is a person from a mathematics background and they have literally no academic experience in neuroscience, but is it that they can actually contribute in real to some lab?
Yeah, of course. So, like I said, neuroscience, like you do not need to have a background in neuro as such. So, neuroscience, like you all must be knowing, like it's an umbrella term, and you have like computational, cognitive, behavioral, cellular, molecular, different types that come underneath it. So, I know a lot of people who've done physics and maths, and they are now neuroscientists, like because they have chosen the computational pathway. I know a lot of doctors who have gone into neuroscience. So, of course, if you're into maths and you want to get into neuroscience, you do not need to, like, fear the fact that your chances might be lower. But yes, you need to apply to programs where you can see that your skill set is adding to the lab's value. So, even for like general, like when you approach professors, when you approach supervisors, look at the kind of work they are doing. Read through their publications, that is very important. And a lot of these labs, they usually list out like a list of techniques, like we use XYZ techniques, ABC methodologies in our lab. So see how many of them are matching to your skill set. Like even internships are important, like if you've done a little bit of that in your internships, that is also great. You can actually move on with that. And then yeah, just straight away email. Like the best thing I feel is just to email the professors and like just start having a chat with them. Yeah.
So, to be a neuroscientist, is it mandatory to have a master's degree in neuroscience? And if not, what others field could be considered for postgrad?
So yeah, like if you're considering in pursuing a PhD or becoming a professor in the field of neuroscience, then it is advisable to have a neuroscience degree or a neuropsychology degree. So like I know many psychologists who have now come into the field of neurosciences because they wanted to move on from the mind side to the brain side of working things. So yes, a master's would be preferable. You can also, so a bachelor's does not really matter, but you need to have a good amount of research experience in neuroscience, preferably a few publications in your name. And you need to have a very strong research statement and research proposal if you're going in for research, like if you're going in for PhD and like research assistant posts. Otherwise, if you're going for something in the lines of industrial exposure or like even teaching for that matter, then like your degree really does not matter as such. You can have any degree from biosciences if you're going into industrial exposure and still work in the neurology department. But yeah, like a master's would be beneficial.
All right. So, neuroscience, being such a diverse field, is sometimes a little too overwhelming for an outsider to explore. What are your suggestions for a beginner to explore the different branches of neuroscience to find out, yes, this is what they want to do?
Um, so what I would suggest is read and read and read like as much as possible, because any which ways once you get into research you will have to read a lot. Like I think like 80% of your time will just be focused on doing literature review of like other neuroscience based topics, other topics which are similar to yours, other scientists, the kind of work they are doing. So, and you really don't know what you want until you actually get there, when once you actually start doing your project. Like that happened with me. So I think like if you want to actually know what is happening, you can also connect with different people who are working in different areas of neuroscience. So if you're not sure, I don't know if like cellular will work for me or if behavioral neuroscience will work for me, you can definitely contact people, or like PhD supervisors or even postdoctoral students. They are also super helpful, and they can guide you and tell you that, like, because something might just appear a little different on the outside, and then once you enter the lab, you go like, oh shit, this is not what I thought I would be doing, and this is not really my cup of tea. So yeah, just networking, reading, and a lot of research, I would suggest that.
Yes, somewhere I feel that, I mean, there is nothing certain about which way we are going to go. Of course, only if we try it out, only if we read about it, and then we get to decide.
Yeah.
So there is this question in the chat box: what are the ways one can get into the industries after masters in neuroscience? What is the procedure?
So you can like, so there's no like one fixed way as such. You can just apply, go on their websites and apply, like, directly just apply anything you like if you like like pharma companies, get into that. If you like specialized health tech companies, just directly get on their websites and like apply for that position. Yeah, so in industry, like, it will be a little too idealistic to expect the job requirement to be very focused on neuro as such, unless and until you're doing a research level position like at NIMHANS or something like that. So unless and until it's that, if you're getting into industry, you should get ready to be a little flexible in terms of the work that is expected out of you. So like, it won't be neuro specific, so you need to keep that in mind and only then apply.
All right. So the next question is, what are the opportunities for a neuroscience-based research in the industry? And can you tell a little bit about your work as a neuroscience researcher at Reservoir?
So the opportunities for neuroscience based research is there in the industry, but I'm not really sure how much it's there in India as of now, because most of the pharma companies, like, they do not have. So when I was in Pfizer, like, they like the research unit of Pfizer is not really there in India. So like, we were only handling the clinical trials and the business development side of it. So, but of course, you can get into the industrial research part of it. You again just need to go online and like, go to the different websites of the pharma companies, see where R&D work is happening. It will be like some, so Indian pharmas will have it, of course, here in India. So they do have like neuroscience based research that's happening here in India, but the MNCs will not. So the MNCs do not have their R&D centers here in India. And so I was associated with Reservoir, but then I decided to quit and start something different. Like, I decided to like do my independent research, which I mentioned before. So my work over there was, so I was a neuroscience researcher, I was a product developer there, and I was basically writing articles, blogs, content for the website, creating papers, like a lot of research work. But then again, like, since it was a neurodiversity based startup, it was more in lines of inclusion and awareness rather than actual neuroscience and neurological disorder understanding. So it's more in terms of like marketing and social media, so there wasn't really much of neuro there. So yeah.
So there's this question in the chat box. How do we arrive at a problem that we might feel we will be taking if we are interested for a PhD? And is it really important to do a master's degree before PhD?
So, no, you don't need a master's. Like, it's not a requirement, like, it's not an essential. It's preferable if you have a master's before a PhD. Some universities do take in students if you have a bachelor's, but then you also need to keep in mind that your bachelor's need to be of 4 years if you're going for a PhD, because usually it's 3+1 or 3+2, or like a 4-year bachelor degree, which they prefer for a PhD. And yeah, so that's why like it's preferable to have a master's, not really essential. You can skip that and just go for a PhD, because the first year of a PhD is where you do lab rotations, which is kind of like what you do in your master's there abroad. So yeah, that's that. And if you like, how do you arrive at a problem? mm, I think if you have a problem statement ready, if you know what you really want to work on, first would be just to go online and see if there are groups, committees across the world that are working on the same problem statement, that are working on the same issue that you want to address, and then just mail them saying that, hey, this is my background, this is what I feel can be used, and we could get associated for a collaboration. Some of the PhD professors already have dedicated projects beforehand, so they will not really ask you for a research proposal. But if you do have a research proposal, that's great. Like, you can just like contact them and just like send your research proposal across.
So there's this a question that somebody is interested in NEET or NEST. I mean, these are the competitive exams to enter in medical courses in India. So,
Mm.
can they pursue neuroscience later, or can there be a different path actually, other than pursuing MBBS on the first step?
Yes. So see, like if you're doing this, so you don't really need. So if you're doing a bachelor's in neuro, then you don't really need your NEET or NEST for that. Like I also like gave my AIPMT and stuff, but then I decided that what, I'm interested more in the research part of it. But yeah, you can directly go in for a bachelor's in neuro. At least when I was there, like when I was pursuing my bachelor's, there were no like like specific bachelor programs, undergrad programs in neuroscience, which I absolutely like hated the fact that no options or opportunities were available for me. But now there are programs coming up. So there is National Brain Research Center, if I'm not mistaken. There is one. So I think that's the one in Chandigarh or Mohali, one of the two. ICER also has, IISC has bachelor's in neuro. So you can approach these places. TIFR, there's a lot of work going on with respect to neuroscience. So you can of course like look at TIFR as well. But yeah, you can directly pursue a bachelor's in neuro. I'm not, so I don't know. So I know these programs exist, but I will not say anything about the kind of teaching that happens there, because I myself have not been exposed to that, and I don't know the quality of neuroscience research that's happening at a bachelor's level here in India. So yeah.
So, how can we pursue a career in clinical neuroscience after a master's degree in neurobiology?
Clinical neuroscience, you can get associated with a hospital. Like I was planning to do that, so you can get associated with any of the private or government hospitals. You can, so if this is in India, then you can like mail NIMHANS or ICER or any of these research institutes or IISC, and preferably some that are associated with a hospital as well, so that you get the whole medical hospital exposure side too. But if you're thinking of doing it outside, then you can also go for a diploma. So they have diplomas as well, where like you can like focus only on one particular topic or one particular subject. So that can be clinical neuro for you. And other otherwise, internships are great. Like, as much as, like, I know how you all feel, like, like, what is the point of an internship, or like, it might just be useless, but internships actually help out a lot. Like, I discovered my passion for neuroscience via an internship. So you can definitely try out internships, you can get in touch with people and just work in probably a lab or probably a hospital or any corporate for that matter.
So everyone generally thinks about a transition from academia to industry and not so much about the transition from industry to academia. What do you think would be the challenges someone who went into the industry after masters would face to move into research into neuroscience?
So the industry to academia, obviously, the first thing, like I said, is the funding. So you need to keep that in mind, that the funding is not, so the pay is not going to be as high as you're going to get in industry. You need to look out for funding opportunities if you're going into academia. Industry is more of like a set routine, like you have a job description, especially the corporates, like the big MNCs corporates. So you have a job description, you're working in a big team. You're solving like cases, you're solving like problems which are coming via a client or some of that sort. You're working in the pharma industry, but in academia there is no guarantee. So, like, your experiments might fail today, it might work tomorrow, so that excitement is there. So that is a challenge. So it depends on what way you take it as. Like, I always found that very exciting in academia, but yeah, sometimes it can also be extremely depreciating for your mental health. Like, you're constantly working on a problem and it's not solving. But otherwise, yeah, like, industry is more in terms of, like, having a set routine. In academia, you can be your own boss. So you can actually decide that I want to do design experiments, I want to do this at this time of the day. I don't have to have a 9 to 5 working timeline, I don't have to have a 9 to 5 working job. I can come in, go wherever I want, as long as you get your final end goal, end result.
So, if somebody wants to have a career where the data is being collected from directly from the patients, so can there be a path for such career if you can tell us into clinical trial research?
So clinical trial research as such, like, there will be projects. Like, I'm not sure the research part of it, how much of it is happening here in India, but I do know that there are a lot of, like, pharma companies, for example, Pfizer itself, Sanofi, Novartis, GSK. They all do a lot of clinical trial work. They are all like, and India is like the hub of clinical trials because of the population. And all these pharma companies do a lot of clinical trial work here, so you can definitely be associated with them if you're a part of the industry. But yes, again, like, you may not go in terms of, like, as a neuroscientist, you might just be a part of that industrial exposure, but via that, like, if you have the right networking contacts, if you can, like, come up with some projects that you want to work on, then that way you can get associated with clinical trial research. There are CROs, like clinical research organizations, who are working on different problem statements, so you can definitely approach that. But yeah, as of now, like, I'm not too sure about getting associated as a neuroscientist with clinical research and getting associated with patients here in India.
Ritvika, you being an avid advocate for mental health in these stressful times, how do you suggest we can ensure that we are mentally at peace with us and everything and everyone around us? How important is it to focus on mental health? And this is primarily because this is what we are experiencing COVID surge cases. And how can we ensure that we are mentally fit?
Yeah, I can absolutely understand. Like, the I think COVID pandemic has taken a toll on everyone's mental health. Everyone's, like, it's either physical or mental or both. So I, for myself, like, what I do is I try journaling. Journaling helps a lot. And like, if you can just take some time out of your day and just write a few thoughts about, like, make some goals, like short term goals, long term goals, have this in plan. this will help a lot. What is the other thing that I also do is I maintain this gratitude diary. Now this might sound stupid, but then it's actually very helpful for me. So I write things that I'm grateful for every day. Because in these times of uncertainty, where like right now the cases are increasing so much, people we know have COVID, some have even like unfortunately like succumbed to it. Like I'm in Bombay right now, and I know people who have like got COVID, are like in the hospital in ICU, don't know they're going to make it or not. So I just try to meditate, like write my gratitude journal, take some time off, and like video call my friends and read. And like if you can just decrease, like please decrease your time on social media, because social media really is not conducive for your mental health. Like especially like Twitter, Instagram, they'll just like Facebook, like they'll just like flood you with all sorts of negative news with like no references, like they are not even vetted sources of information, and you just get into this whole state of panic and anxiety. So y'all are neuro enthusiasts, your serotonin and dopamine levels drop. And if you can actually feel like psychological manifestations, like psychosomatic manifestations of what is going on in your mind is affecting your physiological well-being, then I would definitely encourage you to get in touch with a professional, a therapist, like talk to someone, talk to a professional, talk to counselors, because this is happening at a really fast rate. Like I did my certification in cognitive behavioral therapy only to help people, like, so I use CBT to help people who are facing mental challenges, mental trauma, especially in times of COVID. So in that case, if y'all want to like talk to me, reach out to me, y'all can definitely do that. Like I will leave my LinkedIn um, credentials here in the chat box, and y'all can reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can definitely have a chat in that sense.
So true. So there is another question, a follow-up question. What can a person with a master's degree in neuroscience do in the mental health field apart from strict academic research?
Mental health field, from neuroscience, so you can see like neuro. So if you have a neuroscience degree, it is more in terms of the brain aspect of it. So it's more in terms of the human physiology aspect of it rather than the human psychology aspect of it. So if you want to become a therapist, or if you want to become a psychologist or a psychobehaviorist, then for that you may need another, and as far as I know, you definitely need a qualification to call yourself a therapist, because as neuroscientists we cannot um, give any therapeutic advice to clients or people. But you can definitely collaborate and work with clinics. You can work with, I know a lot of groups who are doing online sessions right now. You can like join these groups, committees like the Plain Jar and all, and you can definitely like like host podcasts. You can do a lot of these kind of small activities if you're looking for something just on the side, like pro bono. But if you're looking for something as a main career, then I would say that joining like organizations or NGOs, like like there are like organizations like Empower, which actually takes in people with these kind of backgrounds. So you can definitely join that.
Great. I would like to bring the conversation back upon the academic questions. So there are so many different options other than academia, medicine, or even industry. However, there is a dearth of understanding as to how one could actively contribute to neuroscience through unconventional options. So, if you can suggest us if there are such options and how can we go ahead with them?
Unconventional, as in, I didn't get that, sorry.
uh, like different from even academia and even industry. There could be some ways, or if there are not, even then you may clarify us.
Okay, so as far as I know, there's industry and academia, like for neuroscience. But yeah, if you want to know more, and if you're not coming from a neuro background, you can definitely like just like like read a lot of. There are a lot of novels out there on neuroscience. Like I'm just discovering that like now in the lockdown, like there are a lot of novels, a lot of podcasts, a lot of videos, a lot of content that has been created. And So I find people around me who are always interested to know more about the brain and more about what's happening in the mind. And if you think you can add on to that, you can definitely like start your own, like podcast maybe, or like a video series where you're explaining things, or like you're just like doing a book review of sorts about neuro. But yeah, like as far as I know, like the two options for you might be like just academia, where you can go into teaching, or research where you're working in the research industry or doing like a research assistantship or a researcher as a scientist, or the industry part of it. Otherwise it's just like it will be translational. It would not only focus on neuroscience.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you're audible.
I just lost my connection, so I rejoined again.
No worries.
So, being a scientific writer, what tips would you give us to improve our scientific writing?
So for scientific writing, you need to have a very good idea of comprehension. Like that is a must. Like you need to understand the topic you're writing on. You need to understand how can you make it super concise, and you need to have a very good set of analytical skills, because you're going to identify the problem, you're going to analyze the problem, and then you're going to write more on it. And some of these might also be translational. So you need to have a good eye for detail, like how you can make the topic easier for the layman, for the crowd, who's not coming from a background like you. Because we come from medical, pseudo medical, biomedical sciences background, so we use a lot of jargon which the layman might not understand. And as a scientific writer, you need to make sure that without being too elaborate, in a very laconic manner, you can just, like you don't need to be super verbose. In a very laconic manner, you can just put out your points across and make the crowd understand the specific medical statement.
Okay, so I have this last question with me, which is my personal favorite. And this is the last question. So, what is one advice you wish you had got when you were younger and you would like to give us?
Okay. um okay guys, I'm not really that old, like just saying.
Not at all, but when you were student, like in
Yeah.
bachelor's or master's.
Okay, so one advice. I think I was really going with this headstrong, like like I was like a horse, with blinders, just focused on my academics in my bachelor's. I was kind of a nerd during my college days in Xavier's, and I was focused on, like just the academic part of it. I was not really looking outside. The reason I got interested in neuro is because I did work at an occupational therapy clinic. So I was working as an assistant to an occupational therapist, where I was working with children who had neurodevelopmental disorders like autism, cerebral palsy, ADHD, learning disorders. And that's why I wanted to get into that field. So if I have to give you all one advice, that would be just network as much as possible. Look out for collaborative opportunities. Like how I mentioned, like, I'm thinking of starting something new in terms of neuroscience. And if any of y'all have any ideas, or y'all want to like work on something together, or y'all want to collaborate, y'all can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I put up my LinkedIn over there. We can discuss something. Or y'all just want like plain advice, y'all can also reach out to me for that. But definitely network, talk to more people, spend your time wisely. And one more thing you need to realize is, once you're out there in the real world, no one cares about your academic record, like the marks you got or the grades you got. Everyone just cares about your skill set. So understanding the skill set is way more important than actually being a part of the rat race. So yeah.
Great. I'm so happy what you said just right now. And thank you so much for taking time to be with us, really. And I think this has helped a lot of us. So, thank you everyone also for joining with us. Thank you so much.